Hello and welcome to Thursday afternoon's Table Talk. It's good to join together again. I'm Alison Soughton, Team Vicar in Melksham Team Ministry. Hope you're having a good day today. Our garden is sighing with relief at the more rain falling on it, and our lawn is almost looking like it can grow and breathe. So it's happy. And actually, looking at my garden sighing at relief at the rain made me think about what I was going to talk about today. Last night I was involved in a Zoom meeting which had been organised originally as a face-to-face meeting as part of our ministry development in the diocese, and Bishop Nicholas was talking to us and others about eco-church, about how we as a church take responsibility for our creation. And it's a really important subject. So I just thought it would be good to share with you some of the things we thought about last night. In the midst of our pandemic, everything that was coming to the forefront of our imaginations and our hearts about the climate emergency have almost vanished and disappeared. We have been very focused on, and quite rightly, on what it is perhaps to survive this pandemic, on the impact it's had on our community. Of course, the crisis that is in our very face when it comes to climate crisis is also still there, still happening, still moving on, despite the pandemic that distracts our attention. And as we come to a point where we begin to move beyond and through everything that's happening in the pandemic, it's really important for us to not lose sight of that emergency which is global, just like the pandemic. And just like the pandemic, climate emergency tends to have the greatest impact on the poorest people on our planet. And we've touched before on this matter at the kitchen table while I've been talking to you. But last night, as part of the talk that we were having, we listened to a video, and the video was a letter to my grandchildren and written by a young woman who had very young children, just 3 years old. And her letter was to grandchildren that she did not yet have. But in that letter, she spoke of her sorrow, and it was full of her fear of what they would be experiencing because of what she was living. She apologised for using the car instead of cycling when she had too many bags to carry and it was just quicker. She apologised for turning up the heating. She apologised for all the things that we do without even thinking about it, knowing that someone further down the line would be paying for those actions. It was a very powerful letter, and it made us all stop and think. Today in Melksham, it's quite chilly. And about an hour ago, I said to Derek, I'm just going to turn the heating up because I'm a bit cold and my bones are aching. And then I thought about what I was going to sit and talk about at the kitchen table, and I went and I turned it back down again. So it is a bit chilly. And when I'm finished doing this, I'm going to go and find a jumper and put it on. But it just reminds me of how the small things that we do without thinking about it have a big impact. It is a bit chilly, but I didn't really need to go and turn my heating up today. A jumper would be enough. But sometimes we're just conditioned to do things. Today, on my table, I've got a mug, a nice mug of tea that Derek made me earlier. And on my mug, it has a beautiful tree. And it's a nice mug. I like drinking from it. It's not quite as nice as my posh cup of tea with my fine bone china, but it is a nice mug. But on the side of it, on the tree, there are all sorts of images. little parcels of gifts, little bits of music, necklaces, love hearts, lips for kissing, a tree of life, if you like, full of things. But it made me think about how many things we need. The tree here is full of stuff, just like our lives get full of stuff. And how easy it is for us to forget that everything we purchase has a cost much greater than the cost of what we are buying. But the manufacture, the rubbish it creates, perhaps the looting of our planet in order to produce whatever it is that we're buying, they all have a part in the story of our planet and how we look after it. Some people are very, very clear. The scientists, there are many scientists who are very clear that the action we need to take for our planet is now. And as a church, the Church of England, in its synod, made a commitment that the churches across England would reach net zero of carbon emissions by the year 2030. That's a huge commitment. The Paris Agreement is looking to net zero by 2050. But the church says we should be leading the way. We are the ones who have a God of creation. We are the ones who have Christ who gives sacrificial love and shows us the cost sometimes we have to pay. And we have the Holy Spirit who pushes us, guides us, nudges us into serving one another and seeing what lies before us. So the church is in a perfect position to take a lead and to show the way. Now, whether you're a churchgoer or whether you're not, I'm sure you're aware that church buildings are very often old and drafty and high, and in terms of ecology, an absolute nightmare. The windows are beautiful stained glass and the heat flows straight out of them into our outside. The boilers are often ancient and creaky. The walls damp. It's a nightmare. How you get a net zero carbon footprint on a building like that is going to be an absolute challenge for each and every one of us. And we can start with the simple things like how we put our lighting, what lighting we use. We can start to look at our heating, whether we use ground source heating. How green we can be in everything that we do in church will be really important. But the role of the church is more than just working out how our buildings can be carbon neutral. The role of the church is to encourage the people within the church community and the people within our wider community to think about what it is to protect our creation, to think about what it is if we don't. Some of the estimates for the tipping point of climate emergency, the point at which we will have gone so far in our production of greenhouse gases and everything else that is involved in the climate emergency, will have moved to the point where it has gone too far for us to be able to draw it back. Greta Thunberg says, we should treat climate emergency as though our house is on fire. If your house was on fire, would you dither? Would you think? Would you say, I don't know what we'll do about that? Well, maybe let somebody else worry about it. I don't think you would. If your house is on fire, you take action. You take action to make yourself safe and to put the fire out. That's what we're being asked to do. And if we don't do it in this generation, we leave it to our children and to perhaps the point at which the tipping balance has gone too far. The letter from that young woman that spoke to her grandchildren made me think of my grandchildren. They are ranging from 1 to 7, and they have a future before them. But the future that they have before them actually depends on how you and I act. So whether it's about our own personal turning down our heating, thinking about how we shop and what we do, those things are all important, but they're not going to be enough. Many of us will have to really take action to make things change. In the past, I have been involved with non-violent direct action. And I think that for some of us, that might be what we need to be doing. We need to be standing up and saying to the governments across the world that actually this is really important. Don't lose sight of it in the austerity that's coming, because make no mistake, it will be here after the pandemic. Across the world, we will be in a very tough place financially. But we cannot let ourselves be distracted by the core problem of our planet, desperate for us to take action. So there might be a time when you get a call from the kitchen table to stand together, to lock arms and to say, listen to what is important to us. I hope you would join me in that. For some people, that might mean staying in the background and praying. For some people, it might mean standing in the front line, hooking arms and saying, this matters, and I'm here to say it. Our planet sustains all life. Without our planet, life is not sustained. And as we are in this time, in church, this time is known as ordinary time, and yet there is nothing ordinary about our times at the moment. We stand facing a pandemic, we stand looking at austerity in front of us, we stand amidst changes with race and equality that truly are moments of change in perception across our land. And ecology and our care for our planet is right in the very heart of all of that. There is nothing ordinary about our times. But don't be despairing, because in there, when we despair, we do nothing. I call you to hope. Jesus gives us hope. He showed us about direct action when he kicked over the tables in the temple. He showed us how to love one another and care for the stranger. And that's what we do when we care for our planet. We worry about our grandchildren not yet born. We worry about our brothers and sisters in lands we can't even pronounce the names of. And we find hope in that in our hearts and in our minds, we have the strength to do what we need to do. And we can do it together. That's something to think about, isn't it? We're going to meet again tomorrow. Thank you for the text messages. I could do with lots more about whether you are feeling safe about coming back to church when doors open, or whether you would prefer to stay away. Don't forget to send the text message. Don't forget to love one another. And don't forget, now is a good time to be doing some research, to be finding out more, and maybe to be thinking about how we change our world. Take care. God bless. Bye for now.